Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's webinar, where we'll be covering all the product updates that we've made in PICO in the first half of this year. My name is Joyce Young, and I'll be moderating your webinar today. A few housekeeping items. The first one is this is obviously being recorded, and we'll share this with all the attendees and registrations. Everyone's automatically muted. If you have a question, please pop it into the Q&A feature at the bottom. We'll make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to Steve, our head of product, to get started.
Thank you, Joyce. Appreciate it. As Joyce mentioned, we're going to be going through most of the updates covering the first half of this year, in addition to a variety of other updates that are coming very soon. A good summary of what you're about to see today is covering some new data analytics modules. That's going to be covering some visual factory pieces and visualizing your production floor using some dashboards that can be displayed out on the shop floor. Managing our work instructions a little bit easier by using some process templates and variants, along with some other interesting ways to manage your media library, which I'm sure a lot of our users are going to be excited to see. And then finally, wrapping up with some of the new device integrations that we have available that are continually added to the platform as time goes on. So we're going to jump straight into Visual Factory, and I'm going to be jumping back and forth between the slides and the product here so you can see some of that interactivity and where some of these features live for those of you that are currently using PICO. But to start, Visual Factory is a way for us to have an interactive view of our production floor. The idea is to drag out your process tiles and view all of your stations where they are in the factory. So let's say I've got a small production line, whether it's a group of sub-assembly stations or a true production line. We can customize that blueprint to match that layout. We can interact and see active statuses, downtimes, alerts, and other information that's coming from those operators. We want to be able to track active or potential bottlenecks that are happening on the line and how those relate back to our overall status on the floor. So I've got a sample layout here. I've got a similar station layout. If I hover over any of these specific tiles, I can see what process is currently being built at that station, what time those things started at the factory local time, if you're for some reason traveling or away from the building, and what step of the process they're on. I mentioned the alerting mechanism. I'm going to hover over station D here for a moment. We can see that if there is an active alert saying that the operator is currently out of material, we can see how long that's been in progress and the transcript of that conversation as it's happening, what communication's happening between the operator and those responding, and if it needs to be addressed directly. Same goes for our station status here, that there's a tool or machine issue. It's station F here, and we can see that station G is paused, showing some idle time at the station. We're showing that essentially there is a downtime event on the station that's causing some downstream effects to be able to visualize these things. Again, whether you're back at your desk in between meetings without having to go to the production floor, you can have this interactive view. This is all located on the station page directly, and being able to drag in additional stations. I'm just going to pick one at random here. We can bring in additional stations as needed from the flyout here, simply by dragging and dropping and adding these things to our stations as needed. I'm going to remove this back from the artboard as well, just so I can keep my station statuses neat and tidy here. The second piece to support our factory floor visualization is a TV view dashboard for that same group of stations or different. We want to see those current cycle times as they're happening on the floor, whether there's specific locations we're seeing, what serial numbers are active at those locations, where certain work orders are, and again, that same methodology of where are those bottlenecks happening, so I can see those statuses, those downtimes, and any active alerts, so I can send out supervisors or respond accordingly. This is a static view, and what I mean by a static view is that you don't have to interact with this to see all the information. It's meant for your 42-inch TV, for example, that's out on the production floor. So when supervisors are bouncing around between tasks, we can quickly see what's happening, where things go. So to set this up, we have a new tab on the stations page next to Visual Factory called Dashboards. We can have as many or as few stations as we want on each given line. All of these are live times. coming from those factory locations. And the way that we can manage that is adding our individual stations. This is, again, just a representation of that factory line, a little bit streamlined for this example. When we hit this interactive button, we can assign a line. And what I mean by that is it's just a group of stations, a group of things that need to happen over the course of your production setup to be able to say, is this on production line 1, line 2, line 3, or a group of sub-assemblies? And managing those lines is simply on this configuration section of the product to be able to manage how many different production lines you have. When creating these dashboards, all you need to do is edit to make sure what lines are available to be able to display it on this line. It's capable of showing 8 stations at once, but if there's more than 8, it'll just slowly roll through them so you can see the full visibility of what's happening on the floor. This is projectable just via traditional HDMI methods, Chromecast, whatever you need to do to get this out on the production floor. But we can see live, up-to-date information, counting how many things have I completed at that station, how many pieces are waiting to be built, and what's my overall serial number tracking and schema through that production line. So we can track these things through as. The last piece I want to touch on and some of that visualization is regarding station analytics. This allows us to double click on, so to speak, each of those stations to show how I'm performing. It'll tell me how many builds I've done through a station at a given time, how many different processes, how many different operators, and I can see what my uptime typically looks like and what my overall schema looks like. That visualization at the bottom shows when am I down, when am I traditionally taking breaks and lunches when they're being recorded, what's my active time, what's my pause time. We can layer on alerts as well so we can track to see what that looks like. And that's available on any given page here to see that we've got over a specific date range. We have the number of builds. I can see that I have 3 different operators that perform tasks on this build. I made 37 of them, and what my average cycle time compared to what my ideal operator time was. So I can see that overall performance on each of these stations and track how I'm performing, again, if I want to zoom in on any specific location on the production floor. An upcoming dashboard to our machine operation, machine tending cycles is tracking output pace and recent cycles. I'll use CNC machines as our example, that we can count and output and monitor that pace of how we're performing. This is essentially a dashboard that operates in parallel with the work instructions. So when I toggle back and forth, I can see my traditional PICO instructions step by step, whether it's setup, capturing those actions or scans or measurements as needed, but I can have a different view supporting that operator of how am I actually performing and building? What does my build time look like? So I can see my current cycle, my target of what I'm supposed to be doing, the average of what I'm building at, and we can factor in how often your operators are building to determine am I ahead or behind schedule, and visualize it with different colors of I am ahead of pace, I'm behind pace, and what I need to do to catch up. You can see we also capture recent downtime events. If we're plugged in directly to the machine, we can have a log of those to help augment the operator of, yes, I was machining for 8 hours today at the station, but in reality, I was only machining for 6 because I had a bunch of coolant issues or other overheating problems that caused me to do that. And when we're tied in directly with those machines, we can just capture those downtime events directly. So we're logging it for the operators so they don't need to write everything down manually over the course of their build. Transitioning over to the process side of the house, we want to be able to manage those high mix product lines. Those of you who have been with PICO for a little while have seen some of the intro features of this new upgrade, but essentially we want to link things together to a template to manage a series of variants as needed to support these things. So when we talk about linking and unlinking actions, which I'll be able to demonstrate a little bit easier in the product in just a second, we can review all that information to see how these work instructions tie together. For example, I'll use what's on the screen here is the clutch install. There's a bunch of different torques depending on what model chassis we're putting it on, what model. Those fasteners are going to change, those torques are going to change, and we can tie that over to the top level information and have it individualized to each of our different options, model numbers, product names, product serial numbers, work orders, however your factory is naming it, to be able to manage those things appropriately. So when we tie those back to that top level information, I've jumped straight into a variant management. I can see that I have a top level template that has 10 different steps and a variety of different actions and measurements that happen along the course of that build. When I go to any specific template, in this case, I'm going to go to option C here. I can see the different level of information that is associated with it. So for example, steps 8 and 9 are completely grayed out, which means that I can capture the amount of deviations and exclude these entire steps from that template. So when I'm pulling up option C or revision C or customer C, I can say, don't worry about step 8 and 9 as a whole. If I change any specific items, in this case, I'm going to change this step that requires this info label. I don't have any current deviations. If I go to this step, I can change anything I need to say, I don't actually need this info label for the customer. And now when I go to my list view here, I've excluded that as an action to say that for this specific version, all of this can be tailored directly to what you're trying to build. In this case, I don't need that info label anymore, and it's going to exclude it from this specific variant. If I have a new configuration, I'm going to cancel these changes. If I have a new configuration across this product line, let's say I need to add a new verification, a new template, or I'm changing the brand or model of circuit board I'm putting in here, when I make a change to my template, it's going to propagate that change all the way down through the rest of my variants. So I've got, let me do a quick count here. I've got 6 different variants and configuration options here. When I make one change, let's say I'm changing that Sense PCBA install. When I change this image, I change the scan or how I'm fastening this thing in on my template, I can propagate that through all of my variants just to make sure I don't have to change it in 6 places. I only have to change it in 1. So we have this tied together to be able to manage that top level, top-down configuration, or managing your different product configurability as we go through. Another exciting piece of our upcoming release is the skills matrix, which allows audit and control for managing your operators across all your different processes. And what I mean by that is it's your traditional Toyota skills matrix level 1 through 4 to be able to say by process how operators are capable and trained to be able to perform some of these actions. So level 1 being I can observe only, but I can't contribute to the build. Level 2, as shown on the screen here, is I can perform as long as there is a level 4 signed in with me, which is my certified trainer level. And level 3 is just your standard, I can build as needed. I don't have any issues across my building mechanism. So we can manage our operators to do this by when they select a process to sign in, they get a message saying, hey, you're not even certified to start this process. You're going to need to have somebody train you or go talk to your supervisor as needed, but you can't even start building or start documenting on that process without the proper levels of control that have been given by the managers of the system. Finally, I think I mentioned at the beginning about our current PICO users are going to be really excited about this, but we've increased that functionality of managing our in-product media library. So we can have the full list of images associated with it. Right now, it's essentially just a central database of all these images, but now we can search depending on our name, who uploaded it, when they uploaded it, and have timestamps associated with everything. If you want to know every location where this battery image is located inside of your product, we can see in this list view all of these different locations. If I need to go to that process or replace it with a new image, all of this content is managed appropriately to review all of this information as we're going. And this will be included as part of our next software release as well. I want to take a few minutes to review some of the new device integrations. For those that are unfamiliar, PICO has a full library of devices that are included as part of the baseline package, and that will be listed on our website. We're always continually integrating new tools to be able to support the devices that our customer base is using. All commercially available tools that are capable of outputting information can be integrated within PICO directly. A couple exciting examples are some vision systems by both Detect It and Overview, which allows us to quickly perform quality check inspections and blocking the build from moving forward in the event of a detection. Overview functions in the same way with very focused and finite inspection areas to see where things can, you can train those images to say whether things are present or not present or look for specific defects. And why this is important, we have a standard PICO checklist to be able to monitor those visual inspections, simple pass fails, but this is kind of an augmentation on top of that of, yes, I can visually inspect, yes, I can take a static image, let's layer some detections on top of that. Additionally, we are pretty excited about that Keon's laser engraver. Instead of having to print out a barcode label and slapping that on your part as it transfers through your shop floor, now we can use this laser engraver to put that serial number, whether it's subassembly, mainline, to mark that part as needed as it goes through the shop floor. We've got a variety of different scanners, badge readers, and tablets as well, from anything ranging from Zebra to other HID OmniKey badge readers. But essentially, these are ways to read information. A lot of you have RFID tags or HID tags that you used to get in the building. These are great for credentialing your operators and reading that piece of information as they log into the system or go through some of the other options. We've got a large list of other new device integrations. Most of those fall into the category of precision fastening, different models of torque tools and different methods of putting things together. A lot of different brands, some new and exciting models from our partners at IR, from some of their impact drivers. We've also got some new calipers and scripts that allow us to capture and measure information more appropriately. I want to highlight specifically that TF Luna LiDAR sensor. For those that are unfamiliar with LiDAR, it's kind of a base technology that is used in self-driving vehicles. We don't necessarily need that level of measurement and fidelity, but we can use it to detect movements or activity. They functionally have an input-output of how far away something is detected. When it's just sitting on your desk, it'll tell you how far away the ceiling is, for example. But we can use devices like that for proximity switches without your traditional workpiece fixturing that detects, did something physically click into your fixture or not. We can use sensors like that to determine, did something enter the work area? Did somebody put their bin in a hand in a parts bin to be able to detect if a piece was actually picked up? Or a common question we typically get is, how can we integrate with offline tools that don't have any connectivity? Well, we can detect if somebody reached over in a specific area and actually picked up the tool and whether they put it back. So it's a great way to enforce cycle times, detect some kind of movement, or whether a workpiece just simply came onto your desk or workbench on a production line, and we can manage some of that activity appropriately. So there's an interesting way for us to use tools like that. For those that are potentially asking, I've got some custom equipment, I'm not really sure how it works. We're very adept at integrating new equipment into our line, whether it's proprietary to you or something that you're kind of developing using a series of PLCs. Typically, our average custom integration time is a cumulative separated over projects integration time of anywhere between 10 and 20 hours. So it's a very quick process with us just because of how frequently we can measure some of those and integrate some of those new devices. So for those existing users, feel free to continue emailing us at support@PICO for additional questions about how we want to get rolling in some of these actions. But for those of you that are new to PICO, you can visit the FAQ area of our website to introduce some of these concepts to you in a little bit more granular way, or you can actually sign up for a free license of digital work instructions on that link today to get you that entry level of how can I manage my processes. How can I start documenting my digital work instructions and enter that journey?
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. At this point, we'll turn it over into live Q&A. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A chat box. Steve, I'll start rolling with a few questions. These features that you covered today, are they at an additional cost for existing users?
They are not. So all of our features here that are new are part of our continual software upgrades. We have a new release that's, these are our high level updates. We covered a a lot of different things here, but there's some bug fixes and other potential, customer requests and other smaller features that come in. We deploy new features about every month and new releases every month. So as part of that purchasing package and of our continual licensing agreement, you can get these upgrades part of your package overall. So all of these new features as things roll in will all just be part of your natural deployment, and you can continually receive all these updates with everyone else that's using our platform.
Perfect. Someone wanted to know, can our work instructions handle foreign languages or languages outside of English?
Great question. The best way that we've seen our current customer base, I mentioned those templates and variants earlier. Since you all are experts in your process, we want to make sure that you have the ability to translate the instructions directly using that structure. So we have some folks that are using, I'll use that chassis example of that drive line and that assembly process. We have a baseline template that uses the same pictures, actions. There's an English version and a Spanish version, exactly linked together, but they can manage their work instructions. As an operator, when I'm logging in a building, I can pick, am I building in English, am I building in Spanish, or however many variants are included as part of that structure. So we've seen a lot of successes in that space to be able to manage that language difference.
And Jamie wants to know, what are some of the new upcoming features that you are most excited about in the second half of this year?
Yeah, definitely. So as a recap, this is things that we had up from the first half of our year for those that joined us a little bit late. But there's a couple key areas where we need to drive our product forward. One of that is in that analytics space. We've made a lot of great improvements on our custom dashboarding side. So just a little answer for those that may be wondering, our platform is all SQL based, specifically PostgreSQL, and that allows us to plug into a lot of different custom dashboards. All of you are, monitoring your throughput, active cycle times appropriately, but when we really break it down, we want to make sure that you all can customize accordingly. So we've done a lot of infrastructure work to enable, custom dashboarding, whether it's Power BI, Tableau. You can really set up those live or as close to live as possible dashboards to get that content that you need on your shop floor, whether it's, again, a custom TV view, whether it's reviewing quality or throughput numbers for your morning meetings, talking about, are we ahead or be behind? How are we going to get back on track? But just really allowing you to manage your shop floor using a little bit more intuitive of a queryable database. The second piece is kind of doubling down on that variance aspect. We can capture, those individual process nuances, but what happens when I have, a 10 process product, and each of those processes can have 5 or 6 variants apiece. We've started with process variants. Now we need to get to product variants. So when we talk about managing that complex life cycle, I have 10 to the 15th power of different configurable options. When I'm connected to an ERP or I'm connected to some sort of workflow tool, how do I build and associate all of those processes and products with what I have from my ERP, and how can I manage that workflow in PICO without having to build more products than I necessarily need to? So there's some architecture things there as well. And then the last piece of what's coming up, we're really focusing on our onboarding experience. We're very proud of being a no-code, quick to deploy platform that we can move very quickly. And this isn't a 6-month conference room pilot platform. This is a deploy and go platform. And we really want to make sure that that day one experience for our users is that way. So, today we can say that we can, deploy stations in, about a day, that you get your server and can start building. Let's get down that number even lower. Let's start building in 4 hours or 2 hours and really make some of those improvements to close the loop on our initial product when you're starting from a blank slate. How do we move even quicker to make sure it's easy to use and intuitive to all of our users?
Excellent. Jamie had another question. Are there any new features related to build notes?
Correct, and that's a good question, Jamie. We've upgraded our build notes aspect to manage some of our quality management. And what I mean by that is within the operator screen, someone can leave documentation of what's happened, whether that's a suggestion of how to do something better. I've got a ergonomic safety concern, or someone might just want to check this out from a quality perspective. we've also added in the ability to leave potential quality defects and issues. And what I mean by that is your traditional non-conformance reporting or scrap codes at your facilities. So the operator or a quality inspector can leave that documentation, and we've added in something called note statuses, which allows us to say that it's actively being reviewed or it's been resolved. So it's that intro level of quality defect and tracking to enable all of that, non-conformance reporting or other status tracking for those anomalies that may come up over the course of your build.
Excellent. We'll wrap it up around questions related to the tool integrations. So for the 20+ tools that you show today, where can somebody find the comprehensive library?
Yeah, we've got the tool library list available on our website that has all the different families, whether it's barcode scanners, touchscreen monitors, torque fastening tools. One of the really exciting ones that really helps airproof your facility in addition to those torque tools is a bunch of measurement machines, and that's going to include air leak testers, multimeters, those things, or high pot testers, those things that are very critical to quality measurement of we can't ship X, Y, or Z out of our facility until we've certified that it's within a range. Capturing that information directly from those testing machines really helps. So all that list of our currently integrated equipment is available on our website.
And how would somebody go about suggesting or nominating a new integration?
The best way to get a hold of us is to reach out at that support at PICO MES email for those that want tools integrated for those traditional, I've got a USB and I need to plug it into something. Once it's online on one of our edge devices on our hubs, our device integrations team does a great job of turning those around very quickly. For those more custom projects, reach out to us in the same way, just to make sure that we're understanding and parsing that information correctly. But that's going to be just a couple within a week turnaround time for us to get back to those typically for those pretty complex projects. So please reach out to that support at PICO for those device integration type questions.
Perfect. Well, we're out of time and we're also out of questions. So thank you, Steve, for taking us through this. I want to thank everybody for attending this as well. We'll send out the recorded version, and very shortly you should also receive, I think it's a 2-question survey asking, are there future topics that you would be interested in for us to cover? Your suggestions are a goldmine. So please let us know what we can do better and what kind of knowledge we can share. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see everyone later. Thank you.